yeah, I'm gonna give it a go. I know how to squat. I know how to deadlift. I'd never benched before, ever.
Ever. Never benched.
Never benched. So I
hadn't actually even properly trained. If you haven't benched, then you've never even really...
Never benched.
See, there'll be people who are listening to this and the first thing they ever did was bench press.
But even I knew eventually this couldn't go on.
Was it getting harder?
It was getting harder.
So it was already hell. It was getting harder.
It absolutely was getting harder. I was getting older. And I just thought, I don't need this anymore. I easily put on 10 kilograms, which doesn't sound on bench. I used to bench.
That's a crazy amount.
I know. I got a scan almost immediately. I was very lucky. And they saw a mass around my ovaries, which could be cancerous.
This is my conversation with Cat Chamal. Cat is a world-class IPF Masters powerlifter. And in this podcast, she takes us through her powerlifting journey, from being inspired to start training after watching a 90s action film, all the way up to her current status as one of the country's leading masters lifters. Kat takes us through her transition from weightlifting to powerlifting, the contrast between those two sports, and why she eventually chose powerlifting. In the last few years, Kat has dealt with some very challenging physical problems, leading to life-changing surgery, and the main part of our discussion concerns the implications of recovering from a major operation and how she, sensibly but courageously, navigated her return to training and eventually competing again. Kat is an engaging, warm and positive person, and I hope you find this conversation enlightening, inspiring and hopefully also entertaining. And without further ado, I give you Cat Chamal. Do you remember the first time you trained with weights?
I do actually, Henry. I was 15 years old. I bought myself my first set of dumbbells. This is how old I am. From the Argos catalogue, because you couldn't order things online then. And it was after seeing the film Terminator 2, funnily enough. I saw Sarah Connor, for those that have seen the Terminator, the second Terminator film, doing pull-ups on a bed in a mental health hospital, and I thought, I want to look like her. Linda Hamilton, that's right. And at that time, there wasn't any women weightlifters that were well known, or obviously female powerlifters, and I couldn't go online. There wasn't any internet in those days to look up women who were famous bodybuilders. So Linda Hamilton was my role model. So I desperately wanted to look like her. So I bought myself some light dumbbells from Argos and started using those on a daily basis, not knowing whether I was doing the right thing, but doing push-ups as well. And I loved it and haven't looked back.
Yeah, 15, that is early. I got my first weights from Argos as well, because I think we're of a similar vintage, aren't we? So,
I think so.
I do remember that scene in that film, and it is quite an iconic, because to see a lean, muscled woman, especially as like she's effectively the co-star of the film.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think you had Sigourney Weaver in Aliens at the similar time, sort of decent shape, and she was a female strength role model as well. That's really interesting. So from getting your first weights at 15, how did your journey with weights progress from there?
Just using stronger dumbbells. I didn't know at the time how to progress, really. So it was just, as I said, I couldn't go online at the time. There wasn't really any way I could access strength magazines. Women in the early 90s weren't encouraged really to use weights. It was all aerobics. So I just learnt from where I could, really, and that was mainly sort of watching the men lift in local gyms. But I just slowly built up my confidence to use the heavier dumbbells and the machines, not really knowing what I was doing, but noticing my body changing and really enjoying that feeling and enjoying lifting heavier. So none of my friends were doing it at the time, none of my peers, but I just knew I loved it. And just progressed from there, gradually finding gyms where I felt more comfortable to use the barbell, and then very slowly progressed to doing the Olympic lifts, weightlifting, which I absolutely loved.
What was the first gym that you remember using then?
The very first gym, proper gym,
for actual weight training.
Was my university gym. I went to Aberystwyth University, which is mainly full of big rugby players there in Wales. So that was the first gym, and I was kind of watching from the corner of my eye what the men were doing, and kind of reluctantly copying them when they'd left the gym.
Interesting. So up until this stage, so from 15 to 18, you weren't really following a program?
No, I am
just working out with weights.
Just working out with weights. In fact, Cindy Crawford had a tape at the time where she did a little bit of sort of body weight workouts, and I learned a lot from her. And she did a bit of dumbbell work. So I religiously watched this tape. I'm so envious of people nowadays where they've got access to so much information. I worked with what I could, but I certainly developed a good foundation to be a powerlifter in later life. So
that's really interesting. Comparing that to so you were watching over and over again a VHS tape of someone who isn't really even a lifter, just a fitness person, just lifting random weights, and you're watching that over and over again. And you consider now the amount of knowledge there is out there, for females, for males, for anyone, and that's how you first got started.
I think in those days we just did what we could. And you don't know any different, so you don't really feel like you're missing out. But I always feel like there's too much knowledge now. I wouldn't almost know where to begin, to be honest. So that's why I imagine it's harder in a way now for people to get actual proper expert advice when there's so much misinformation out there. So it's almost gone the other way. But yeah, at the time I worked with what I had, and I mean, do I wish I had access to more information? Of course I do, but at the time I was happy and I enjoyed it, and I just wish I knew then what I know now.
So we're just working out with weights, going to the gym, and then at some stage you start powerlifting. So how long ago did you actually make the move into actually training towards powerlifting rather than just working out in the gym?
It wasn't that long ago. It was about 6.5 years ago, actually. So I think I was 39, so a late starter to powerlifting. And I was doing weightlifting at the time.
Olympic weightlifting.
And I was training for a British weightlifting competition. And I was at a gym called MSC in Birmingham, quite a well-known gym, and had a weightlifting coach there. And I'd be watching the powerlifters from the corner of my eyes and thinking they look like they're having fun. Not that I wasn't having fun weightlifting, but it's such a technical lift, the Olympic lifts. I'd often fail it more often than succeed. And somebody said to me, there's a divisional competition coming up in 4 months. Why don't you have a go? And I thought, well, why not? It'd be fun. It was a West Midlands competition, as you can probably tell from my accent. And I thought, I'm gonna give it a go. I know how to squat. I know how to deadlift. I'd never benched before, ever.
That's ever. You've never benched.
Never benched. So I
hadn't actually even properly trained. If you haven't benched, then you've never even really...
Never benched.
See, there'll be people who are listening to this, and the first thing they ever did was bench press.
No, never bench press.
The complete other way around.
It was kind of discouraged. I don't know whether it is now, but at the time, as an Olympic lifter, you don't want to tight pecs, tight shoulders. So we didn't need to bench press. Some Olympic lifters may disagree with me, but I was never encouraged to do it. It wasn't part of my training. So
before in the past,
never bench pressed, never ever. I'd never even used the bench press machine, so zero pecs, but big triceps for my other lifting. So I asked a coach who works at MSC, who still does, the manager of MSC, Luke Rogers, if he could just teach me how to bench press. And my tricep work must have paid off, because I think I weighed 53 kilograms at the time, because that was the weight category for British weightlifting. And I immediately, the first time I benched, I did, I think, 55 kilograms, so over my body weight. And I did think this is quite easy. And so whatever work I was doing, I couldn't arch. I had the narrowest grip. I still do, actually, narrowest grip possible. But
where'd you grip? Are you inside the rings?
I'm inside the rings. I've tried experimenting outside the rings, but I'm finding it's causing me too many niggles. And as much as I would love to, I'm probably the only female lightweight lifter at the moment who's trying to make their ROM less on the back of the bench press rules. I'm still desperately trying to learn how to arch, and I'd love to widen my grip. Whereas everyone else is trying to reduce their arch and put their grip narrower, I'm still trying to do it the other way around. I know I'm disadvantaged with the way I bench, but it works for me.
But then if you look at, obviously Bobby Butters, you look at someone like that who's got a relatively close, long range of motion. You're one of the best bench pressers in the world. If it works for you, it isn't always the best idea to try and minimise range of motion. If you've got a technique which is, and like you said, you've built up years and years of tricep training, maybe some people specialise in bench too soon. They don't build that foundation first, whereas you've gone the complete other way. And a bench is obviously one of your stronger lifts.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Henry. Actually, Bobby is one of my role models when it comes to bench, so I do watch her lift a lot, and I find her very inspiring. So sometimes when I'm having self-doubts when it comes to the way I bench, I do watch the way Bobby benches, and I think, yes, it works very much for Bobby. So
yeah, because obviously I coach Bobby, and we've tried different grips, and we took up super wide, and she wasn't as strong. And it's like, well, we could spend ages doing that, or we can focus on the fact that she's already one of the strongest bench pressers in the world, and we can just try and improve it.
Yeah,
so
makes sense.
You don't have to be that sort of optimal technique.
No.
I think some people get trapped in that too soon, getting stuck in that optimal technique and trying to make it work for them, whereas you've just found what worked for you and stuck with it. So no, that makes sense to me. So you moved to powerlifting, you tried bench pressing for the first time. You did West Mids Divisional?
I did.
And then did you just get the bug?
I got the bug. I loved it. No disrespect at all to weightlifting competitions, but they're very intense because the lifts are so technical. They're quite quiet.
I love the way you started with no disrespect. Normally, when someone says that, the next thing is going to be, oh, hang on.
No, not at all. It's just the vibe I got immediately from the powerlifting competition. There was the music, there was the crowd cheering on for you to grind out the lift. It was a completely different vibe. Yeah. And I just got the bug straight away. I didn't want to give up weightlifting, so for a while I did both.
That's tough doing those two sports. I mean, to the layperson, you'd think, oh yeah, they're barbell sports, but they really don't go together.
They don't. And all it did for me was double my chance of getting injuries. So I knew I had to eventually pick a lane. So on the basis, really, of the fact that powerlifting comps had such an amazing vibe, and I just loved the community, I picked powerlifting, and I was better at powerlifting, if I'm being honest as well.
That helps. That helps. That was sitting there on your shoulder.
But if I could still do both, I'd do both. But no, there's not enough hours in the day, and then I'm not ready for that amount of injuries. So yes, I stick through powerlifting, and within 6 months of doing the first divisional, I was lucky enough to be selected for the Masters GB team. So
it's crazy. 6 months of your first comp. So you hadn't even done a national.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I did a national in between then. Yes. So, yes. So, yeah, did my first national. Again.
So straight away,
straight in the team. Yes. Yeah. So very, very lucky. Very, very. Bit of a whirlwind start to powerlifting, but
you must have thought this is easy. Oh, here I am. I've only just started bench pressing. I'm in the GB team. So what was that international then? Do you remember? You must remember that one pretty well.
I remember it so well. It was a place called, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Gore, in Hungary. Gyor it's spelled, the city. So it was there. I didn't know.
Budapest.
No, not Budapest.
It never is it? With powerlifting. It's never in a cool place.
No, it's always
we had a Western Euros outside Milan. It was outside Milan. It was a long way outside Milan. You're like, this is nowhere near. Yeah, so go on. Yes.
I loved it there, not least because this was my first international, I thought they did this for all powerlifting competitions internationally. They had this mascot who was a huge chicken. It was absolutely bizarre. That was walking around a huge giant chicken amongst all the powerlifters in a big chicken outfit, because apparently that's the symbol of Gore, and the chicken was handing out the medals, and I thought that was wonderful. I love a mascot, and been disappointed ever since then to establish that that's not the case.
I've never seen a mascot. I've been doing it for 20 years. I've never seen a mascot.
I'll have to show you the pictures afterwards. But yeah, that was my first international.
How did it go?
Well, I was ranked 5th. I was so nervous. I didn't know what to expect. It was the first time I met the wonderful Martin Bass, who is
legend, by the way, Martin. If you're listening,
absolute legend.
He won't be listening because he doesn't like technology, but it's a joke.
Most masters, to be fair, I'm joking. Yeah, so didn't know what to expect. Didn't know at all about the intensity of international competitions, but I was ranked 5th. I didn't even know at the time that international lifters receive different medals for different lifts. Yeah. So that was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, because nationals, obviously, they don't. Maybe they should do, but they don't. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think if ever that was introduced, that would be quite a good move, I think.
I think for the senior open now, because it's going to be so exclusive for the seniors, they probably should, because you're only having the top 12 in the country going. From next year onwards, that might be a good shout if they did medals for the individual lifts, because you're already saying it's elite, and if you're saying they're elite, then giving them the chance to win individual medals is probably a step forward.
I completely agree, absolutely.
So hang on, so you didn't know that you came 5th overall.
No, I was ranked 5th, but
ranked 5th?
I managed to come 3rd overall, and actually managed to
overall?
Bronze for squat, bronze for bench, and bronze for deadlift.
So 4 bronzes?
4 bronzes, because I thought I'd walk away with nothing. So, and again, I'd never experienced, because I'd never had a handler at a comp before, or a proper coach. I never had experienced a coach working out numbers on my behalf to know what I needed to pull to win. So the legend that is Martin Bass worked out that I needed to pull this particular deadlift. My last deadlift, I had to pull a number I'd never come close to pulling before.
Do you remember what it was?
I remember what it was. It's quite light for me now. But, it was 147.5 kg, which, by the way, for a Masters 52 lifter is, it's nearly 3 times body weight.
It's not bad for anyone. So coming into that comp, what's the heaviest lift you'd ever felt?
It wasn't that much lighter, actually. It was 140, but again, I was saying
still 7.5 kilos more than you've ever had on the bar in your life.
Yeah,
I'm already nervous.
Yeah, and
so he said, "Look, you're putting it on."
I remember his cue. So well, because I wanted to laugh in my head, because he's got this wonderful Cockney accent. Those like, "No, Martin," and
ex-black driver, lifelong Cockney, Martin Bass.
And I won't try and put on the accent now, because all Cockneys would hate me. But he just came up to me and went, "Cat, if you're struggling with a deadlift, do you struggle to get it off the floor, or do you struggle locking it out?" And I went, "I struggle to get it off the floor." I was a sumo lifter at the time, as most sumo lifters do. And he said, "Well, just get it off the floor then." And I thought that was the best cue ever. And I thought, yeah, fine, we'll just get off the floor then. And whenever I've struggled to...
Just get it off the floor then.
Exactly.
All right, darling, on you go.
Exactly.
Just keep coming.
Yeah. And it was a simple cue and a basic cue, but it was an effective cue. So, because of that, I won bronze, and this lovely giant chicken came and gave me a medal, and it was all like a dream sequence, and I loved it.
Sounds like a fever dream.
But but that was the first time I'd ever really experienced what it was like to have a coach, a handler in the background, work out numbers. So I have such appreciation for handlers and coaches at any comp, let alone internationals, to look at all these figures and numbers. I couldn't do it, and sort of work out who needs to pull to do what. And
it's nice having the bar loaded for you in between every wall. You don't have to do anything. You can just sit there. They're telling you when to get up and take things. It is nice, isn't it, to have all that done for you?
It's absolutely wonderful.
And none of them are being paid either. All those handlers, they're paying to go out there doing it on their own dime.
Absolutely, yeah. Massive credit to them. Yeah.
So that was your first international. So doing that well, being still new to the sport, that I'm guessing that was you just fully hooked then doing that. And
yeah, no looking back. Absolutely loved it. Loved everything about it. There's nothing I didn't like about the sport. I loved everything about it. Fully committed.
Now you were 52 back then, and you've recently moved up to 57. Mm-hmm. Was that just because of making weight difficulty? Is that the...
Oh, Henry, absolutely.
So that first international in Hungary, how did you make weight for that? Was that easy?
No, it's always been difficult.
So right from the start?
Right from the start. I've never found, I've never walked anywhere near close my current weight, actually. I've always weighed 3-4 kilograms over.
Okay, so that's a lot for someone who's only mid 50 kilos of body weight. That's quite a high percentage. You're getting on for 8% of your body weight to lose.
Yeah. So I perhaps should have mentioned earlier, I used to train in a martial arts gym. So with Thai boxers, so I used to watch them make weight all the time. So I just automatically assumed that's what athletes in a weight category sport did.
See, this was a previous idea.
Yes.
Now, don't they have 24-hour weigh-ins?
They do, right. They do. So I should have really took that into account.
Completely different, yeah.
So I've always cut. I'm lucky that it's never really affected my lifts on the day. I'm quite well informed when it comes to how to refuel properly, which is half the battle. So
who taught you that?
Again, my own research and speaking to boxers, martial artists, and that sort of thing. Even though they have a 24-hour weigh-in, learning about when to take salt, when to take carbohydrates, the importance of fueling correctly, and not gorging on food or eating food that you wouldn't normally have on a normal training day. It can be quite a steep learning curve, because I think the temptation is to just grab that box of donuts when that's the last thing your body needs. But I've always been quite good at refueling, so that's never really affected me too much. But the cut itself, the day before the competition, I always go through hell, and I wouldn't advocate it.
This is going to be my next question. If someone was coming to sport, they're not a master, they're just anyone. Let's say they're a female 17, 18-year-old. What would you say to them about your first comp and cutting?
Well, first, if they can lift at a weight category above, then do that. You don't want to worry about cutting, absolutely not. It's going to potentially affect your enjoyment of the day, affect your lifts, and there's no need when you can compete at the weight category above. Absolutely no need. So,
especially if you're new to the sport,
of course,
it doesn't need to be an extra thing you're thinking about. No, because I'll always say, if I've got a client and they come to me and they're early in their career and they say, "Well, I'm in between these two weights," I'll always say, "No, just grow into the weight class you're in, build experience there, because you don't have to worry about that. Add on the top that, let's say they're a younger female client, you've got all sorts of other issues going on. You do not need to add cutting weight to their menu of things they're having to deal with, possibly building up problems in the future." So I think that is decent advice to anyone out there.
100%.
You've got a long time in your career of lifting. Don't worry too soon about just, I'm in the middle of a weight class or something like that. And you do get that, because obviously these weight classes are arbitrary, those numbers. So
absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. I should stress that the reason why I cut into the 52s was because I was already cutting to be a weightlifter into the 53s. So what's one more kilo? And
I think also as well, your body could obviously deal with it. And that's just a genetic thing. Not everyone. No. When I was competing, I tried a water cut, and I just lost so much strength. Yeah. Some people can water cut and they don't lose. Other people cut it, and you're just obviously one of these people do it, and their body was like, okay, I'm all right with this. Yeah, absolutely. But even I knew eventually this couldn't go on. Was it getting harder? It was getting harder. So it was already hell. It was getting harder. Absolutely. It was getting harder. I was getting older. And I just thought, I don't need this anymore. And I knew, so I won the Europeans twice as a 52, and I'd won the British Masters twice as a 52. And at the time, I had all the 52 records, apart from squat. British records I'm talking about here. Yeah. So there wasn't, other than winning the world, which I was never going to do, I couldn't at the time, and I still couldn't beat the Canadian or American lifter. There wasn't a lot more I needed to achieve as a 52. And the cut I always hated, the cut I was beginning to even detest more and more, if that was even possible. So I thought, there's just, I've achieved everything I can as a Masters, realistically. Let's move up to the 57s. And I knew I wouldn't win everything as a 57s, and I might not even have been selected on the GB team, but I didn't care. I honestly didn't care. It was a lovely new challenge I was willing to take on.
I'm so glad I did that, because my strength, just by putting on a few kilos, just went boom. Yeah, it flew through the window, particularly when it came to bench. I think for myself and the other female powerlifters I'm friends with, it can be the bench that affects you the most when you cut, and bench is my favourite. So watching that fly was so good.
That's my experience with lifters as well. It is the bench that takes the biggest hit.
It's weird, isn't it? But
it's the one that's most reliant on, because you're in a static position and you're driving off a bench and you're using a lot less muscle mass than the other two lifts. It's the one that just gets hit the most by it.
Yeah.
So, like I say, being a bench specialist is a bit of a hard hit to take. And then also you don't know, your numbers in training don't reflect your strength on the day because of the cut. It's hard to know where you are. Whereas when the cut's smaller, you can go, I know if I do this in training, that means I can do this on the platform, as opposed to just guessing, because obviously then you're in danger of picking the wrong numbers on the day because you don't know where your strength is.
Yeah, exactly.
So how much do you think you've put on your bench since you've made that change?
I usually put on 10 kilograms, which doesn't sound on bench. I used to bench.
That's a crazy amount.
I know. So it's
like a 10% increase then on your.
So as a 52, my max bench was 75, which was the British record at the time. Lenka's since took that. But I've benched. In fact, the first time I did it was super training comp in December. I benched 85. I did it. Sorry, I didn't weigh in for super training. I weighed in at 58.5, I think, in December. The English bench champs last year is a 57. I got 85. So yeah, 10 kilograms
difference, isn't it?
Yeah,
on that.
Yeah.
To me, that would say that's the right call.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, in fact, I put 30 kilograms in total in a year once, just by going up a weight category. So.
And what weight are you walking around at now then? Well, you don't have to walk me there once.
I still need to cut. Actually, I weighed myself this morning and I'm 59.5.
Oh, all right. I thought you were going to say.
No.
That's right.
So, which is about right for me. That's fine. I'll do a water load and it won't be, I'm competing soon. It won't be too that painful for me. So, that's tend to be my normal walk around weight now, between 59 and 59.5.
So up until 2021, the biggest hurdle you had in your lifting was the actual cutting weight for the competitions.
Yes.
So 2023, something else happened. So what happened next?
I was having awful stomach issues with a great deal of pain within my stomach, and menstrual cycle is always going to be an issue for any woman playing any sport, but I noticed that my periods were getting heavier and closer together and becoming absolutely horrific, which I put down to my age, perimenopause. I'm in my 40s, but the bleeding was non-stop, and it was making me anemic. It was affecting every part of my life.
How long did you put up with this before you went and saw someone?
About 6 months, and I thought, this isn't right.
Time to be.
It is a long time, and again, with everything, with hindsight, I definitely should have seen somebody earlier. But when I did speak to a professional, I got a scan almost immediately. I was very lucky, and they saw a mass around my ovaries, which could be cancerous, and fibroids. For those that don't really know what fibroids are, they're non-cancerous tumours that are quite common with women, but not to the size and the extent that I had, and where they were situated around my womb and uterus. So multiple problems. So they said to me the only option was for me to have a hysterectomy. Sometimes this can be done keyhole, but the extent to the masses that were growing around my ovaries and my fibroids, I was told I'd have to have an incision, a large one, to remove my womb and uterus and ovaries. So I found that out in November 2023. In fact, your super training comp. That morning, I had my bloods taken for the operation.
You didn't tell anyone that?
That's, to be honest, Henry, that's why I didn't make weight, because I had my consultation at the hospital where they had to take my bloods and blood pressure before the operation, the pre-op stuff. And I'd never had an operation before, so I didn't know what to expect.
You'd never had surgery?
No.
Before.
So they told me I was doing a water cut to make weight for super training, and they told me, we're urine sample, so can you down this pint of water, please? And that's my excuse when I'm making weight for that comp. So you've just blown my water cut.
They need to know if your body's going to survive the operation.
I know.
Which I think takes precedence over the water cut.
He does. So I still had the best comp I've ever had, actually, that super training comp. There were best numbers, yeah. Again, perspective, if you can do that in the morning, you can lift a few weights in the afternoon. So, did the super training comp, and I was told I think it was the 15th or 16th of December, and then my operation, my hysterectomy, was the 2nd of January this year, 2024. So
how long from them saying you need an op to you having an op? How long was that?
It was 6 weeks. I was seen very soon, but I was told the operation would be around March time, but thankfully they had a cancellation.
Okay.
So I was actually having a sports massage in preparation for the super training comp when they phoned up and said, we can fit you in. I think that was on the 14th of December. I was having a sports massage. We can fit you in the 2nd of Jan. So I thought, well, why wait? This is ruining my life. I'm very lucky. Some people have to wait.
You get it done, soon you're back, aren't you? So...
And I know how long it takes some people to have to wait for operations. So I was very lucky. Yeah. Had that done on the 2nd of Jan.
Did you get nervous the week or two before because it could be cancelled? Because I know obviously a lot of people on the NHS, if you're not having it for an emergency, if it's not life-saving there and then, and something else comes in, that's it. They'll just kick it down the road. So were you nervous about that?
Henry, I was very lucky. I've always paid for BPAM for the last 20 years, and I've never used it. So that, I should emphasise, it was a BPA operation.
So that actually paid for itself then? That was
paid for itself.
All those years of paying premiums.
I've never ever used it, not once. So that's, I didn't have that worry. So I appreciate how lucky I am, and so that made things quite smooth. I was lucky. I have to say, I got chucked out after one night, so it's not like I was there for a week being whined and died in a BPA hospital. But I was very lucky in that I didn't have that concern.
So you went home within 1 day of having a full hysterectomy. That's pretty impressive, or crazy, or well, it can be. I mean, up to 5 days is not unusual.
I was determined. So the run up to the operation, even though I didn't have long to think about it, I had long enough to do research, because I really wanted, as we all do after surgery, but I really wanted to get back to lifting as soon as possible. And I was determined to make that happen, because powerlifting is so good for so many reasons, but particularly for your mental health, I think, and with my eye condition as well, I really need that in my life. So I wanted to do everything I could to get back on my feet, literally, after the surgery. I took a great deal of motivation from the numerous female lifters that we have in GB now who have recently had children and C-sections, and the C-section scar is very similar to the hysterectomy scar.
The next thing, the actual scar that you had, it was across the abdomen. It was across,
yes. So
depending on what hysterectomy is done for, it can be different things. So your one, it was cross like a C-section.
It was. And
for anyone who doesn't know, we've used the term hysterectomy. It's basically women having their full reproductive system removed.
Yes.
So it's everything.
It's everything. Yes. So I took inspiration from looking at the wonderful lifters we've had recently, who have lifted quite relatively soon after having a C-section. Obviously, having a C-section, giving birth, is almost the opposite to hysterectomy, but the scar is the same. It's the scar that really causes the problems, I think, when it comes to healing. So I knew I had to get back on to my feet quite soon. So they said to me at the hospital, if you can stand up, we need your bed, we're going to discharge you. Even in Bupa hospitals, they need the beds. So after 24 hours...
They want to send you home as soon as possible because it is better for everyone. It's better.
Exactly.
It's not good to be in hospital.
No.
It's not a good place to be, so they do want you home as soon as possible.
Absolutely. So I was able to stand up the next day and shuffly walk, enough for them to think it's safe for you to go home. So, yeah, that's why I was only in there for a day. But, you know, I'm not saying this will work for everyone. It just worked for me. And perhaps because, you know, I did lift weights and I did have a healthy lifestyle before the surgery, that may have helped me get on my feet sooner.
So you've had the surgery, like you said, the day after, you're there for one night, you're just shuffling around. What are we looking at recovery-wise from that? So how long before you're back in the gym?
Okay.
Anything?
Well, like anyone that would have this sort of surgery, C-sections, hysterectomy, any surgery like this, women are told you can't lift heavier than a kettle.
That's right.
For I think it's 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, 3 months. Well, sound advice, but it's a leaflet for anyone, and it's a one size fits all. And I knew that was advice that
90%
wasn't for me.
90% of the population are what would be classed as like sedentary, so they're not moving around a lot, they're not training a lot. So you're aiming these leaflets at that population, the people who aren't conditioned, whose muscles don't have a high level of tone, they're not particularly strong. So proportionally to those people, a kettle, was it half full kettle or a full kettle, is a relatively heavy weight.
It is.
So now you take that into an athletic population, all of a sudden lifting a kettle drops right down the scale of what is and isn't heavy. So you know that. How do you take that advice after 3 months, and how do you implement, what did you do?
Well, I basically tore that up and threw it out the window.
This is not medical advice.
No, absolutely not. No, this is very much what I did, and everyone's journey is unique. But I did know I couldn't heal myself, and I'm not a medical expert, and I needed proper advice from somebody that knew lifters and what lifters are capable of, and advice from somebody that can deal with or has the expertise to advise lifters who have had surgery. So I found a physio online who has this experience. So I reached out to him, and we had a few meetings, and he gave me some wonderful exercises to do. And basically the confidence, sometimes in these situations, you just need a medical expert to say, it's okay, you can do it. And then you know you're not going to damage yourself horrifically. So he gave me some wonderful exercises to do. When you're discharged from hospital as well, you're not just told to go away. You are given some exercises that you can do at home by the hospital physio. So I was doing them as much as I could. I was told to do them sort of 5 minutes a day. But I think with all powerlifters, the nice thing about the sport is we're constantly in pain, but we know the difference between good pain and bad pain.
Or we should do.
Yeah. And I think I know my body well enough to know what is an okay pain, which means you're, pushing your muscles in the right way, and a bad pain. So with these situations, you really have to listen to your body and be honest with yourself. And I was doing all the sort of pelvic floor exercises and physio exercises I could, as often as I could. But the minute I thought, actually, no, stop it, because you don't want to take, 2 steps forward to go 3 steps back. So baby steps. And then I set myself little goals. So by the end of the first week...
so this is right from the start?
Right from the start. Right. So the minute after I woke up from the surgery, and I thought, right, what is going to be my goal by the end of this week? By the end of this week, I am going to walk to the bottom of my road and back, and feel if that feels comfortable. If that is an unrealistic goal, we're going to reset the goals. So that was an easy goal for me to achieve. So by the end of week 2, I'm going to go for a 20-minute walk, and if I can. stop it if it feels uncomfortable, but tiny little goals. So doing all the physio, band work, anything I could where I felt I wasn't doing myself damage or harm, bearing in mind I've still got a massive scar with a dressing on. So anything that would affect that area, I obviously couldn't do. But there are lots of things you can do, even if it's just sitting down and, you know, reaching your arm up to the ceiling to move your shoulder, or, you know, what I didn't want to be is still and worried about what this means for the future. Afraid of moving. So I also set myself a goal: by August, I'm going to compete again, which sounds mad. I actually applied to do the Manchester Open competition, thinking to myself, by competing, even if I just get a 70 kg total, I just want to be able to go back on the platform and lift something. And if it turned out that was an unrealistic goal, I would contact Northwest and go, I'm really sorry, I can't do this competition anymore. So, but it was nice to have something to aim for. And, you know, you can reset the boundaries or reset the goals as well if those turn out to be realistic. But I wanted to be able to compete by August. I had a word with my new physio about whether that was possible. He said yes, it should be possible. So little baby steps, but a baby step every single day. So over the week, it turned out to be a giant step. So by week 3, I was back in the gym, only doing machine work that I can do. So leg extensions, shoulder press machines, anything that involved sitting down. And then I think to myself, well, can I do 4 sets of 5 at a moderate weight? Yes, this is easy. Can I do 5 sets of 5 at a harder weight? So just gradually doing what you can do. But over the course of the week, this was suddenly a massive increase in weight and what I physically could do. So by week 7, I was back to powerlifting. I wouldn't touch my belt. I didn't want to do that until I'd passed the 3-month mark. Yeah. And I knew the last thing I want to do is tear my scar or...
Could you feel your stitches pulling while you were doing it?
No.
Scar tissue pulling?
No, that's a really good question. That was one thing I said to myself. The minute you feel the scar tissue pulling or the stitches pulling, you stop that immediately, because the last thing you want to do is aggravate that scar. So yeah, that was a definite boundary I set on myself. Nothing that will affect the scar. The scar has to heal. Until that scar heals properly, you know, you can forget powerlifting. Yeah. So the scar was everything. And also you don't want any nasty infections or anything like that. So the scar was my number one priority. Also, I took up a Pilates class, which I found, it was a very mild Pilates class, and I still do it now every Thursday night, and I'm the youngest person there by a mile. It's full of lovely women in their 70s and 80s, but I absolutely love it. And sometimes I find doing those tender little tiny movements on muscles I don't normally isolate is the ultimate rehab. And I absolutely love this Pilates class, and I think it's been wonderful for me. So I'm definitely going to keep that up. So yeah, by week 7, I was back to powerlifting without my belt, gradually getting stronger. I think, and again, I wasn't doing this by myself. I had advice from physios. By week 7, I was discharged from the hospital as well, and the hospital physio to say I was doing well and I can carry on doing what I'm doing and everything's healing nicely. I kept my coach, the brilliant Wes Hall, fully informed, so he was aware of what I was doing. I didn't have a program from him yet, but I kept him fully informed of what I was capable of. So once I could be reprogrammed, he knew what was realistic and what I could achieve. He was, but I had to keep him informed about not only what I could physically lift, but mentally how tired I was and my fatigue levels. So communication is the key. And also getting advice from those people that have been in similar situations. So the lovely Grace, who had a C-section, she's been very open about that on powerlifting, and her journey was giving me advice on how she got back into powerlifting and what she was doing in week 7. So I think it's wonderful that powerlifters will do that. And since then, I've had a number of female lifters reach out to me to ask how they can, or what they should be doing after similar surgery, and I'm more than happy to help. So yeah, between week 7 and 12, I found that my lifts were vastly going up in numbers, which was wonderful. And week 12, I started to put my belt back on, and almost felt I was back to normal.
So so you had the surgery, you said it was January. When do you think? How long do you think it took to get back to normal you, lifting your normal sort of weights?
So probably by June. My bench, I have to say, is still behind. I didn't think bench would suffer that much. Yeah, I thought my squat would actually, bear in mind how you brace against your stomach with squat, I thought my squat would suffer the most, but actually my squat has come back fully. My deadlift, hopefully, yes, my next comp next week will confirm that. But my bench was the one that suffered the most. And I think I didn't realise how much I used my core while I benched. That was something I wasn't aware of until I couldn't use my core. Because I don't arch when I bench. I think I really depend a lot on my pelvic floor and my core muscles more than perhaps other female lifters would. So I couldn't utilise those muscles like I used to.
And using them for stability, and all of a sudden it wasn't there.
Exactly. So I was all arms, and also I think I could, with a female lifter, I found that my bench strength very much depended on my menstrual cycle as well, but I haven't got a menstrual cycle anymore. So with the drop of estrogen, I think that's affected my bench as well, more than I anticipated. So my bench still isn't back. That's made me sad. I'm not going to lie, that's frustrating. But it's almost back. It was 85. I did 85 last week at home, not to comp standards. The pause was non-existent, but I kept my bum on the bench and everything other than the pause. It was a bit of a touch and go 85. So I'm nearly there, but I think I'm going to be honest, it'd be a while before I can get back to comp standard bench. But never mind, it's a new goal. Yeah. And if somebody had told me when I first had the surgery, everything else would be on track, 10 months later, I would have took that in a heartbeat. Within a year. So I certainly, I won the English Championships in July. If someone had told me I'd have a full hysterectomy in January and win as a Masters the English Championships in July, I wouldn't have believed it. So I'm over the moon. Yeah. So you got to take the wins as well as the losses.
Definitely do. Because you almost can't compare what you did before, because you're a different you now. So you've got to treat it from scratch. So the fact that you're that close now is great. It's a great process to have gone through. Your next comp, so that's next week, and that is Commonwealths in South Africa.
It is. I fly out on. So from the time of filming this, I fly out in 2 days' time, and I compete in 6 days' time in South Africa. As a 57.
Sun City?
It is. I've never been to Sun City. I've been to South Africa, but not Sun City.
It's an interesting drive from the airport, because it's quite a long way, and you normally get stopped a few times by people who say they're police and they're not really serious.
Oh, really? So, oh my goodness me! I land quite late in Johannesburg as well. I think by the time I've got my suitcase and things like that, it should be nearly midnight. So it'd be a lovely nighttime drive as well.
Yeah, it's quite a way, and then it's nice when you get there, because it's obviously all on one site. If they've got it in the same, is it in the exhibition centre?
It is.
Yeah, so it's a nice little, they've got baboons and monkeys running around. So you're just walking down the road and then a baboon will run across the street in front of you and you're like, what? They had one who was a huge male baboon, and he was up on the top of the venue ripping the roof apart.
See that.
And then he got into the bins, and someone said, are you not going to do anything? And the guards went, no, he'll kill you if you go near him. Because at breakfast, they have guards standing around with paint guns to shoot the monkeys, just to shoot the paintballs at them, because the monkeys come and steal the food. So you don't get that in Hungary, do you?
No, you don't. You get giant chicken mascots, but you don't get monkeys. So
you've got the wildlife's quite important.
Yeah. So keep your hotel window shut. Yeah.
You had a few people who had their rooms done like leaving the door open. Well, I got one guy, a monkey went through his entire pre-workout. So, yeah.
Don't want to meet that monkey. No, good advice.
Right, so we've got that comp coming up, and then I guess it's just trying to find your way back and keep that process going. How do you find balancing all of this? Because you've got 2 boys as well, haven't you? So training and competing and everything, and you work as a solicitor.
I work for the Ministry of Justice, not as a solicitor, but I'm trained in a trade solicitor.
Is that full time?
It is. It's a full-time job.
Full-time job, yes. Training and 2 lads. How's the balancing of all that? Or is it not balanced?
It is tricky, but I know a lot of lifters are in the same boat, so I don't think my situation's unique. I'm lucky in that my sons are 19 and 17, so they're at the stage where they're embarrassed by my very presence at the moment, which I try not to take offence by, so they don't need me as much as they used to.
How were you when you were obviously going through the surgery? What were they?
Well, they kind of know I'm a resilient person in that I think they had faith I'd bounce back as quickly as possible, and I didn't big up the surgery. I was very much like, lads, I'll be in for a couple of days, be back home, make your own tea, and they were fine.
17 and 19-year-old boys.
So
they're not known for
no, they're not, which is fine. But they're one of the reasons why you have to bounce back, really, and you can't let it get you down, and you need to be back on your feet to look after them. But my parenting skills are clearly not what I thought they were, because they're not into lifting. They both play football, but they're not remotely into lifting. So.
They might come round to it. They might come round to it later on.
Yeah. I balance it how everyone else does. You might do. I haven't got a set time to train. It's wherever I can around my work, which I quite like that system, because competitions can be any time. So, it's not... You need
to be able to lift at any time of day, really.
Yes.
If you're going to start competing.
Absolutely. Not unusual for me to train at 5 a.m. or 10 o'clock at night, so it's fine. You may do, and I enjoy it, so it's fine.
Yeah, if you're still enjoying the training and you've still got a passion for it, it's a lot easier, isn't it? So, yeah, that's great. I've got some quick fire questions, so don't think about these too much.
Okay.
PB or PR?
PB.
That's one of my pet hates, is when people say PR, because PR is American, it's not British. Okay, right. Best assistance exercise for squat, or your favourite assistance exercise for squat?
Split squat.
Okay. Bench?
It's all about assistant exercises. Military press or standing press.
Deadlift?
Romanian deadlift.
Okay, good. If you weren't powerlifting, what would you be doing in your free time?
Am I allowed to say weightlifting? Olympic lifting?
No, can't be with a barbell.
Oh, hiking with my dog.
Okay, hiking with my dog, that's fine. Your favourite lifter to follow and or watch? If you had to pick one lifter, who's your favourite?
Bobby Butters.
Oh, I sure would love that. If you're going to have your dream dinner party, and these don't have to be powerlifters, which 3 guests would you invite? Now, they can be living or dead.
Actually, I had this conversation yesterday. The wonderful Maggie Smith, who has sadly just passed, but she has to play her character in Downton Abbey. Sorry, Maggie Smith.
The Downton Abbey Maggie Smith.
The Downton. And Joanna Lumley, because I think those two would really be amazing together. And there's a local comedian who lives by me who's wonderful and really makes all bummies laugh, and that would be Joe Lycett.
Joe Lycett, okay.
Yeah.
That's a interesting. They'd have a laugh, I think, those three.
I'd have the best time, and I don't think they'd mind my bad cooking as well. So,
your favourite book?
Oh my goodness me!
So it's not powerlifting related.
Oh, I did an English literature degree, so now you've got me. My favourite book of all time is Wuthering Heights, but I sound like an absolute literature snob saying that. So, what is my favourite book? That
Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh, Henry. I know I'm a middle-aged female powerlifter, but that's horrific.
Oh my goodness
me. Oh, I'm taking too long to think about this.
Just pick a random book that you like. If you wanted to read a book for enjoyment tomorrow, what book would you pick up?
I read this most amazing book on holiday and I've forgotten what it was called and I couldn't put it down. It was The End of Something Street. I can't remember the name. Anyway, it's a horror book and I can Google it and tell you. It's called something like The End of Something. Like it's absolutely wonderful and I was just gripped and I was the most unsociable person reading that on holiday. But I'll tell you my very favourite book that I read when I was 15 and I couldn't put it down and I read so many times, it all fell apart. And, when you read a book and it just, because these are the days before ebooks as well, Jurassic Park, the actual book. Yeah, I read it before the film and I just couldn't put it down. And I must have read it about, goodness me.
It was revolutionary.
Yeah. The whole DNA thing. And it's just amazing. So, yeah, if you want to pick a book I've read the most, it's probably Michael Crichton, Jurassic Park.
Favourite film?
The Colour Purple.
The Colour Purple. And favourite TV show?
Oh, at the moment, it's Rings of Power.
Oh, okay. What if it was not a current one, just a one from the past?
Peep Show.
Peep Show. That's a good solid one to pick. Thank you very much for having this chat with us.
Oh, Henry, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Good luck in South Africa.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you want to hear more conversations like this one, please consider subscribing. Thank you.